Hi all, this is just a quick recap tutorial on how to record a drum kit. I'm going to take you through the 5 mic setup we've got here, explaining the mic choices and placement. Now first things first, before you record a drum kit is to make sure that your drummer is set up and they feel happy and comfortable playing all parts of the kit, because the worst thing to do would be to set up all the microphones and then have the drummer change the position of the certain drums, then you have to change the position of the microphones. Okay, also check that there's no rattles or odd rings coming from any of the drums when the kit's played, because you want to make sure that the kit sounds as good as it can do before you start recording it. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through these overheads first, so the microphones we've got on the top here in our picture. And so we've got 2 AKG C1000s, they're small diaphragm condenser microphones. This means that they're sensitive to the higher frequencies and will capture all of the drum kit sound quite nicely. And you can see that we've used the same microphone for both sides to get a balanced sound. We've also got a couple of Midnight Blues that you could replace out for the C1000s depending on choice and what you think sounds best. Okay, so they're positioned at the right height away from the drum kit in terms of the fact that they're the same height. The further you get away from the drum kit, you're going to get more of the live acoustic sound. So if you were in a live environment, we're in a studio here, so the sound's quite dead. But if you're in a hall, the higher up you get those microphones, the more of the room ambience you're going to record. Okay, so that's something to take into account. Okay, let's move on to the kick drum. So as you can see here, we've got the AKG D112. The microphone here is placed halfway between the drum into the kick drum, so between the two skins. That gives you a balanced sound because you want to get the click of the kick drum, so that's where the beater hits the skin or the head of the drum, and then you also want to get the resonance, so the boom of the kick drum, and that, by putting it midway, that gives us a good sound. Now remember, the green band is the front of the microphone, so you want to face that towards where the beater is going to hit the skin. I've put mine slightly off axis here, and that can give a more rounded sound, less clicky, but it's up to you to make that choice, and make sure you listen back to it in the studio and readjust as necessary. Okay. Right, so I'm just going to move around now. We're going to talk about the hi-hat, and we're going to talk about the snare. Here we go. So we've got the Midnight Blue microphone here on the hi-hat, as you can see. Now I've mic'd it up from the top. The Midnight Blue is a small diaphragm condenser microphone, so it's sensitive to those high frequencies, and because of that sensitivity we have to think about where we're going to place it, because we don't want to get too much spill from the rest of the kit. It's not a problem because obviously all the mics will blend in together in the end anyway, but we want to try and get separation where possible. Okay, now we don't mic from the side of the hi-hat here, in this gap here, because if I close that hi-hat, you can see that air is going to be kind of propelled away from that point there. So if we put our microphone down at this point here, that's going to cause problems. So we try to mic it up from the top, and I've also put it on the left-hand side of the hi-hat because that's the furthest point away from the rest of the kit. Okay, now the snare drum. Snare drum, we are using a Shure SM57, which is a dynamic microphone. Okay, you can see there. And what I've done is I've pointed it towards the centre of the snare drum here, because the snare drum gives you a nice punchy sound, and by pointing the microphone towards the centre of the skin, you get a much punchier sound. If you put it towards the rim here, you're going to get the ring of the snare drum. So depending on what sound you want, I've gone from the top. If you go from the bottom of the snare drum, you're going to get a much kind of crisper but tinny sound. You're not going to get the same punch as you will from the top of the drum kit. Some people like to mic both the top and the bottom, which is absolutely fine. It's down to taste and choice, really. You could also record the toms in exactly the same way. If you were recording a very tight, studio-produced, polished rock track, you might want to have those toms there for the fills to be able to get a real nice punch from them. And you can mic them in exactly the same way using a dynamic microphone. Okay. So that's a bit about how to record the drum kit. Just a quick recap on how to use the headphone monitoring system we've got in sixth form as well. Just over here, so we've got our headphone monitoring box here, as you can see, and we're using a female XLR to jack to take the sound away from the studio and put it into that monitoring box. So if I take out this lead here, as you can see, it's a female XLR now, and that ends up as a jack. So we're using a female XLR to jack. That jack must go in the input. As you can see, it's written on here, it says input on the right hand side, and then all of these ones are for your headphones. And remember, the headphones have their own individual volume control levels, so you need to make sure that you've got those up. So the first thing to check, if no one can hear through the headphones, is that A, you've got it plugged in, so the power's booted up, as you can see there, that you've got it in the right return, and it's been plugged into the input, and then the headphones will be plugged in accordingly. Okay, so that's everything studio-wise. I'll take you to the control room for the next tutorial.